and this is obviously subset of field, because we have already proved in this, probably in the second example, that is all fields are Euclidean domains, that is field is a subset of Euclidean domains, the set of all Euclidean domains, and all the UFDs, and we are talking about all that integral domains, right? So from here we can write this is a subset of integral domain. So this is the extended relation between all, that is set of all fields is a subset of set of all Euclidean domain, this is a subset of set of all principal ideal domain, this is a subset of set of all UFD, and this is a subset of set of all integral domain. Okay, this one. Now we will prove few examples, or we will check few examples on the valuation function. But before that we have another more theorem which is also very important and very useful also in problem solving of Euclidean domain. The theorem states that let R be a commutative ring with unity. Let R be a commutative ring with unity. Then the following conditions are equivalent. Then the following conditions are equivalent. Number 1, R is a field. Number 2, Rx is an integral domain, Euclidean domain. And number 3 is Rx is a principal ideal domain. Okay. These three conditions are equivalent. That means we have to prove 1 implies 2, 2 implies 3, and 3 implies 1. So let's start to prove 1 implies 2. That means R is a field. We have to prove Rx is a Euclidean domain. We already proved it. That was our third example probably. That is whenever F is a field, Fx is a Euclidean domain. So you just have to write the proof here to prove that 1 implies 2. Just write that previous proof, that is whenever F is a field, Fx is a Euclidean domain. That means 1 implies 2 is proved. Whenever R is a field, Rx is a Euclidean domain. Now we have to prove 2 implies 3. That means whenever Rx is a Euclidean domain, Rx is a PID. Now every Euclidean domain is a principal ideal domain. We have just proved it. The last theorem was that. So from there we can write if Rx is a ED, then Rx is a PID. So 2 implies 3 is also proved. You just have to write the previous proof here. That is 2 implies 3. Now we need to prove 3 implies 1. That means we will take Rx is a PID. We have to prove R is a field. So let's start. Let Rx is a PID. We have to prove field. Field means every non-zero element is a unit. So let us consider let some A not equal to 0 belongs to R. We have to prove A is a unit. Now consider the ideal I generated by A comma X, okay, of Rx. Now Rx is a PID. That means this ideal will be generated by a single element. Let us consider this I is generated by single element Fx. Okay. Now A belongs to this I. A belongs to A comma X. That means I, and that means generated by Fx. Similarly, X also belongs to this generated by A comma X. That means generated by Fx. So what we can write from this? In the next line we are writing A belongs to that element, that is A can be written as some Fx into Gx for some Gx belongs to Rx, and X also can be written as Fx into Hx for some Hx belongs to Rx. Now whenever Fx equals Gx, now check this one. What is the degree of Fx and Gx? The degree would be like m plus n, right? When the degree of Fx is m, just we have taken the degree of Fx is m and the degree of Gx is n. If we take this, then the degree of the right hand side part, it will be m plus n. And what about the degree of the left hand side part? It is a constant term, that means the degree is 0. So m plus n equal to 0. Now they are both some non-negative quantities. The degree means always non-negative quantity. That means from there what we can write, m equals 0 and n equals 0. That means from here we can conclude that degree of fx should be equal to 0. That means fx is a singleton constant element, because otherwise the constant element, any polynomial cannot have the degree 0. That is, it is like some a0 or some a1, this type of terms. That is, this is belongs to R. So let us consider this is equal to some b, where b belongs to R. Okay. Now that means from here putting the value of fx in the previous condition, that is x equals fx into hx. So from here we can write b of hx equals x, which will imply, now consider the same thing, that is degree from the both of the sides. So if we take hx equal to some a0 plus a1x plus dot dot some quantity equal to x. Now compare the coefficients. So from there we can write, if you consider there is, on the right hand side there is only one thing, which is x, then that means the degree of the polynomial on the right hand side is equals to 1. And what about the degree of x on the left hand side? It will be b into a1. So from there we can write b of a into a1 equal to 1 for some a1. Where does this a1 belong? It belongs to R. So for some a1 equals R, we get that b of a1 equals to 1. That means from here what we can write, b is a unit. Okay. And that means I is generated by this b, which is equals to Rx. And from this, whenever I and Rx are same, that means what we can write, the unity element 1 should always belongs to that ideal. That means 1 belongs to I. Now what does it mean? I means a comma x, generated by a comma x. So there exists some f1x element and f2x such that this 1 can be represented as the linear combination of this and this. That is 1 equals some a into some f1x plus x into some f2x. Okay. Again, compare the coefficients on both sides. So what will we get? From the right hand side we will get 1 equals, if you consider the constant term, there will be no constant term because this is already multiplied with x, and there will be one constant term, that is a into, if f1 we can write it as a0 plus a1x plus dot dot and so on. Then we will get one constant term from this term, that is 1 equals a into a0. So from there what we can write, a is a unit and a inverse is that a0. So we started with one non-zero, arbitrary non-zero element of the field, and we get that this is a unit. That means every non-zero element is a unit in the particular set. So this set is a field. So from here what we can write, R is a field. That means 3 also implies 1. So these 3 previous conditions are equivalent. This theorem is very important in solving problems, because whenever asked like this, prove that this is an Euclidean domain or prove that this is a PID, this is very useful theorem. Okay, from there you can check, you can also prove that ZX is not a PID. We have already proved it in 2 ways probably, because this was a very important example. So ZX is not a PID. You can prove this by taking this example also, because if ZX was a PID, then Z should be a field, which is not, because there are so many infinite number of non-zero elements, which is not a unit. So from there we can say Z is not a field, so ZX cannot be a PID, it cannot be a ED also. So this theorem is very important. Now moving to prove some examples related to the valuation function. First one, if D be an Euclidean domain with the valuation function V, then number 1, V1 is the minimum among all VA for A non-zero belongs to D. We have already proved by the well ordering principle of natural number that is the minimum among all VA always exists. So we have to prove V1 is the minimum among all of them. And number 2 is an element U is said to be unit if its valuation V of U is equal to valuation of 1. Okay, V of 1. So at first let's prove that V of 1 is the minimum element. So for that reason, starting with writing it as we are considering any non-zero element A. Then what about V of A? We can write it as V of A into 1, which is greater or equal to V1 by the first property. That means V1 less or equal to VA, and we have started A, any non-zero arbitrary element. That means for all element this is true. So V1 less or equal to VA for all A not equal to 0 belongs to D. That means this one is the minimum element. Okay, that proves the number 1. And moving to number 2, that is if U is a unit, then V of U equals to V of 1. So for that reason, let U be a unit. That means U inverse exists, and we can write U inverse equals 1 by the property of unit. Then what we can write, V of 1 as V of U inverse, which is obviously greater or equal to V of U. And again by the property of 1, that means just the previous condition, what we can say, V of U is always greater or equal to V1 because V1 was the minimum element. Now combining this inequality and this inequality, what we can say, V of U equals V of 1. So we have started with U is a unit and we ended at valuation of U is the valuation of 1. This proves the result. This part also has some converse part, you can easily prove it. That is, by taking V of U equals V of 1, you have to prove U is a unit. Okay, just the converse part. Now moving to another example regarding this valuation function. V of A equals V of minus A. This is very easy to prove. What we can write as V of A, we can write it as V of minus 1, A we can write as 1 into minus A. So this means V of minus 1 into minus A, which is always greater or equal to V of minus A just by the first property of Euclidean domain. Again minus A can be written as minus 1 into A, which is always greater or equal to VA, again by the first property of Euclidean domain. So started with VA and ended at VA. That means both of them, this one and this one, are same. So V of minus A equals V of A. Okay. Next one is, if V is the valuation function for the Euclidean domain E, then V1 plus n for some positive integer n or any integer where n is any integer, then this will also form a valuation function for E. I have already told you that valuation function is not unique. We can define in many other ways. So we have to prove this is also a valuation function for E. That means under this valuation function you will also an ED. So we have to prove the two conditions for being the valuation function. So let's start it, and we are naming it as, let some A belongs to E minus 0. Okay, and we are naming it as, then V of, what about VNA? We are naming it as VNA. This means VA plus N. Okay, that was not V of 1, that was V of A. This was the actual valuation function. Okay, so V and A equals VA plus N. we have to prove this is also this is also a valuation function for the Euclidean domain D. So starting with V and A, this is equals VA plus N. Now what about VNAB? VNAB means V of AB plus N, which is always greater or equal to VA, and this is N, and VA plus N means VNA. So we proved the first condition, that is VNAB greater or equal to VNA. That is the first condition for being an Euclidean domain is proved. Now we have to prove the second condition. For that reason we are considering two elements, A comma B belongs to that E, with obviously B not equal to 0. Then as we have already told that VA is a valuation function, so what we can write, A equals BQ plus R, where either R equal to 0 or valuation of R is less than valuation of B, right? We have already have this in our hand. Now from there what we can write, V of R plus N less than VB plus N. Then this quantity means VNR and this quantity means VNB. So VNR is less than VNB. That means the second condition for being a valuation function for Vn is also proved. That is Vn is also a valuation function for E. That means E is an Euclidean domain under this valuation function Vn. Okay. This proves the second part also. Similarly, we can define many other valuation functions also. So write down. If I give you like prove that, or check that, not prove, check it for Z Vn equals n square. Vn equals n square. Check that this forms a valuation function for Z or not. Okay, the answer will be yes. You just have to prove it. Okay, I'm giving you the answer will be yes. You just have to prove it. For Vn equals n square, this is the valuation function where n is obviously greater than 0. Okay, just prove it step by step, just like the previous one. You will get the result. And another thing, Q and V we have chosen, and V is choosing like V of P by Q equals mod P by Q, where P by Q is not equal to 0. Prove that, this one. Okay, so not prove, check it, that this will form a valuation function or not. P by Q means any rational number. Whenever we take any rational number, it can be represented by the form P by Q. So V of P by Q equals taking mod of P by Q. You just have to prove it. The answer will be no. You have to find out why. Because why we can't prove? That means you have to find out one counter example. Okay, just to prove that this is not satisfying the two conditions for being a valuation function. Find it. Okay, this too is your homework. Now moving to another example. Next example, using this valuation function. Let D be an Euclidean domain with valuation function V and Vx equals Vy for all x comma y belongs to D. Then prove that D is a field. That means if all the valuation functions are same, then we have to prove that D is a field. Remember, when we have proved that a field is an Euclidean domain, we have chosen the valuation function like Va equals 1. That means for all the elements, the codomain or the valuation value actually was same. So we just have to prove the reverse thing here. Okay, let's start. let some x, y not equal to 0. Okay, that means both of them is not equal to 0. Then by the second condition of the Euclidean domain, there exists some q comma r such that x can be written as xy into q plus r. That means we have actually considered two elements. One is x, another one is xy. Both are not equal to 0. So x equals xy into q plus r, where r is either equal to 0 or valuation of r is less than valuation of xy. Okay, now it is given in the question that all the valuations are same. That means valuation of r equals valuation of xy by question. Okay, that, and here we are saying v of r is strictly less than v of xi. That means this quantity is not possible, this condition is not possible. That means the remaining condition is r equal to 0. So from here we can say this condition is true, that is r equals to 0. Now from here what we can write, that x equals xy cube. Okay, now taking common x, it will becomes 1 minus y cube equal to 0. That means x is not equal to 0, we have already chosen. So this part should be equal to 0. That means y cube equals 1. Now this is showing that y is a unit. Okay, and similarly x is also a unit, because we have chosen that this one is not equal to 0. So y is also a unit. That means every non-zero element in D is a unit. We have chosen y arbitrarily, it becomes a unit. That is, every non-zero element is a unit. So D is a field. This proves the example, that is, whenever the valuation of all the elements are same, then this Euclidean domain is a field. Yes, this is the question. Now this type of examples, or this type of examples including the valuation function, these are very important. Few of them are solved in your SK Mappa book, and few of the questions are also given in the exercise. To practice all of them, try to solve the exercise parts also. These valuation functions related examples are there, very important. Now moving to the last topic, that is how to find the GCD of two elements, a GCD of two elements using the concept of Euclidean domain. Okay, actually basically using the concept of norm function we will use here, or just by using Euclidean algorithm, how to find the GCD of two elements. Now in the last two classes we have already learned how to find GCD of two elements just by applying different procedures, that is some properties of GCD, we use that. Apart from this, we are introducing this new procedure of finding GCD, like what we did in 7th or 8th standard, that is how to find GCD. Suppose I am giving you two integers, you can easily find out their GCD. Like I am giving you 114 and 450, find their GCD. How will you do it? You will at first by this, right? Then 450, it will go for 3, that means 2, 4, 3, which will give you 8, 0, 1. Now we will again divide this 114 by this 108. So 108. So 1 into this one, that is 108, equals, this will give you 6. Again you have to divide it. 1 into 6, then 48, that is 6 into 8 is 48. Then what will be the GCD? This will be 6. That means the last quotient is our result until we get r equals 0. So by applying the same procedure, we will find GCD for any non-integers or any other type of special type of integral domains. We have to find their GCD. So the procedure is, so let we are considering two elements. Let we are considering, just a minute. let we are considering two elements over zi, 3 plus 11i and 8 minus I. Find the GCD of these two elements over zi. Then how will we do? We will apply just exactly this procedure. Okay. So starting with 3 plus 11i by 8 plus I. Now we are not going to divide it like this, like the previous procedure. We rationalize it. Okay. So it will be 3 plus 11i into 8 plus I, then 8 plus I into 8 minus I. Sorry, this will be 8 minus I. This one. No, that one was 8 minus I. In the question the two elements are 3 plus 11i and 8 minus I. So this one, that is just by multiplying the conjugate of 8 minus I. So 3 plus 11i into 8 plus I divided by this one. So it will become 13 by, after multiplication we will get 13 plus 91i by 65. That means 13 by 65, which will give 1 by 5 and then 91 by 65. Okay. Now draw these two rational numbers over the integer line. Then it will be 0 and it will be 1. Now what is the nearest integer of 1 by 5? It is 0. And what is the nearest integer of 91 by 65? It is 1. If you just plot them over this will look like here and this will look like here. So this, the nearest integer is 0 and the nearest integer for this one is 1. So in the next line we are writing it as 0 plus 1 by 5 for 1 by 5 part, and for 91 by 65 we have to use 1. So we are writing it 1 plus 26 by 65i. That means 0 plus I plus 1 by 5 plus 26 by 65. That means we can divide it by 13. It will become 2 by 5. So 1 by 5 plus 2 by 5 I. Okay. So what we can write from there? We can write from there 3 plus 11i, that was, this whole quantity was equal to 3 plus 11i by 8 minus I. So we can write it as 3 plus 11i equals 0 plus I into 8 minus I plus this quantity 1 by 5 plus 2 by 5i into 8 minus I. Okay. Now we are considering this quantity as R and this one as Q. So we are writing in the next line 3 plus 11i equals Q into 8 minus I plus R, where what is Q? Q means this 0 plus I part and R means this part. Now let's get the simplified value of R. What will be the simplified value? R is 1 by 5 plus 2 by 5i into 8 minus I. Now if you try to simplify it, just multiply it and add, find the division and subtraction value. You will get R equals 2 plus 3i. That means from there what we can write, 3 plus 11i equals some Q, what is equal 0 plus I into 8 minus I plus R. R means 2 plus 3i. Okay, this is our remainder. We have to do the procedure until the remainder becomes 0. So we are starting for the next step. What will be the next step? This 8 minus I divided by that remainder. So in the next line we are writing 8 minus I divided R, which is equal to 8 minus I divided by R, which is equal to 8 minus I by R means 2 plus 3i. Again apply the same procedure, just rationalizing it. 8 minus I into 2 minus 3i by 2 plus I into 2 minus 3i. Multiply the numerator and the denominator. After multiplying of the numerator, what will we get? 16 minus 3, then minus 26i and this will be 2 square plus 3 square, that is 4 plus 9. That means we will get 13 minus 26i by 13. After division we will get 1 minus 2i. Okay, so from there what we can write, 8 minus I equals r into 1 minus 2i. And what about r? That one is 2 plus 3i into 1 minus I. Now check, we can write 8 minus I as this plus this 2. This can be treated as a plus bi, and this can be treated as c plus di. That means there is no remainder. If we write plus r, then this r will be equal to 0. So this is our terminator step. We can terminate the procedure here because we already get that r equal to 0. Okay, so what will be our GCD from there? The GCD will be this one, this 2 plus 3i. This is how we find out the GCD of any two arbitrary element by using the Euclidean algorithm procedure. But this procedure isn't so easy, because here for this particular example we can terminate it over the second step. But for the few examples you can check that the step becomes like 4th or 5th or 6th steps. So I will suggest better use to norm function or the previous procedure to get the GCD. If there is no other way, that you didn't find the GCD by applying the norm function and other UFD concepts, then apply this procedure, okay? Because this can be complicated one also. Another such type of examples is solved in SK Mappa book. This was worked example 1. You check it from there, and I am giving you another one as homework. Write down. Find the GCD, find a GCD, not the GCD. Find a GCD of 2 plus 11i and 2 minus 7i in Zi. 2 plus 11i and 2 minus 7i in Zi. You just have to apply this previous procedure to get the result. Okay. Before starting it, just go through once. By the procedure, there are 2 examples. I have solved one and another one is solved in SK Mappa book. You can easily understand this. After going through the procedure, then you can try to solve these problems. Find the GCD of 2 plus 11i and 2 minus 7i. And this will be a lengthy one. This can go up to 4th or 5th step. Okay, but ultimately you will get the result. That's it.